Mic is not on, y'all.
Press the button.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to Diversity Thrift. I am a guest. My name is Sheba Williams. I am the founder and executive director of a Richmond-based nonprofit called No Left Turns, and I'm honored to serve as today's MC on behalf of Virginians for the Right to Vote. Thank you to my Congresswoman McClellan, to Diversity Richmond, and to all of our speakers for joining us as we call on Virginians across the Commonwealth to vote yes on question 3, the Right to Vote Amendment this November. This amendment gives Virginians the opportunity to finally establish a constitutional right to vote and end Virginia's Jim Crow era system of permanent disenfranchisement. Today, you will hear from elected leaders and directly impacted Virginians whose lives demonstrate why this amendment matters and why the right to vote should never depend on the discretion of one politician. Before we begin, I want to recognize our chair and vice chair, Senator Mamie Locke and Delegate Sia Price, who are not with us today, but our leaders nonetheless, as well as our incredible partners who make up Virginians for the Right to Vote. They are ACLU of Virginia, NAACP Virginia Statewide Conference, New Virginia Majority, No Left Turns, the Virginia Civic Engagement Table, Virginia Interfaith Advocacy, the Virginia League of Conservation Voters, and Virginia Organizing. These organizations have spent years protecting voting rights, expanding civic participation, and fighting for the dignity of every Virginian. We would not be here without their leadership, their organizing, and their commitment. I would also like to thank our elected officials, obviously Congresswoman McClellan, Candace Reed of the Richmond Clerk's Office, the Deputy Clerk for Richmond. Sorry, y'all. All of the community leaders and advocates who have joined us this morning, thank you for standing with us. We have a powerful program, so let's get started. Our first speaker has spent her entire career fighting to expand opportunity, to protect civil rights, and strengthen our democracy. Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan represents Virginia's 4th Congressional District, my rep, and has served the people of the Commonwealth for more than 2 decades. As a member of the Virginia General Assembly, she helped lead the effort to pass the Voting Rights Act of Virginia, the first state-level voting rights act in the South. In Congress, she continues to fight against voter suppression and the equal access to the ballot. For Congresswoman McClellan, this fight is also deeply personal. Her family's experiences are a reminder that Jim Crow is not ancient history, and that the work of building a truly representative democracy remains unfinished. Please join me in welcoming my Congresswoman, Jennifer McClellan.
Thank you, Sheba. I want to thank you, Sheba, for bringing us together today, to the advocates, community leaders, and elected officials who are here. Thank you to Senator Mamie Locke, Chair of the Virginians for the Right to Vote, Delegate Marcia Price, Vice Chair, who carried this constitutional amendment, and a shout out to the late Yvonne Miller, who carried the torch for years before. So 250 years ago, this country was founded on the revolutionary idea that the power of government derives from the people in order to secure the natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was an idea sparked right here in Virginia, the birthplace of American democracy, with the longest continuously running legislative body in the Western Hemisphere, which met for the first time in 1619. Virginia was the seed of the Virginia Plan that ended up as in a constitution, the United States, creating a government by, of, and for we the people. But the story of our country has also been, how do we expand who gets to participate in that government by, of, and for the people? Because government only reflects the perspective of, and therefore meets the needs of the people who participate. Now, we have made extraordinary progress in expanding the right to vote beyond white land-owning men. I would not be standing here before you as the first Black woman to elected to Virginia, from Virginia to Congress, if we haven't. But that progress came with the blood, sweat, and tears of many people. That progress has faced backlash. And so whether it was my great-grandfather in Alabama who had to take a literacy test and find 3 white men to vouch for his character to register to vote in 1902, whether it was my father and my grandfather who had to pay poll taxes in order to register to vote in Tennessee, or the millions of Virginians who were disenfranchised after Reconstruction when the 1902 Constitution of Virginia enacted those same voter suppression tactics and a lifetime felony disenfranchisement provision. It is now time to eliminate that last vestige of Jim Crow in Virginia's Constitution. And in order to do that, we have the opportunity in Virginia, the birthplace of American democracy, to enshrine a constitutional right to vote that cannot be infringed at the state level. Because at the federal level, with the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act, making it virtually impossible to enforce, it now falls to Virginia to continue to protect voting rights. And we've done that with the Voting Rights Act of Virginia. But the right to vote should not determine who is in the majority of the General Assembly. And it certainly shouldn't be determined by who is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Because right now, even when you've served your time after being convicted of a felony, even when you are back in your community, your voice and your perspective is not heard in government unless the governor decides to restore your rights. And our governor, Abigail Spanberger, has already restored the rights of many Virginians. But again, your right to vote should not determine who is holding that pen. It is sacred. And that's why I'm here today to ask Virginians to vote yes on ballot initiative number 3, to make Virginia the birthplace of American democracy, the only state in the nation to explicitly protect the right to vote in our Constitution. And today you are going to hear from people who have had their rights taken away, who even when they have served their debt to society, have had to fight to get it back. Just like my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather. And I'm excited to hear their stories, and I'm excited to build on their work so that no other Virginian has to fight the fight that they have had to fight. With that, I'll turn it back to Sheila.
Woo. Thank you so much for those powerful remarks, Congressman McClellan, always. Our next speaker is Mr. Quadair Patterson of Henrico County. After serving 16 years, Quadair returned home in 2024 and began rebuilding his life. But like thousands of other Virginians, he remained locked out of democracy because of a provision written into Virginia's Constitution during the Jim Crow era. A little over 2 weeks ago, Quadair was among the more than 66,000 Virginians whose voting rights were restored by Governor Abigail Spanberger and Secretary of the State, Candy Munden King. That restoration gave him his voice back. Will give him his voice back in November for the first time. Please join me in welcoming Quadair Patterson.
Good morning, good morning. As Shiva said, my name is Quadair Patterson. My name is Quadair Malik Patterson. I live in Henrico County. When I was 19 years old, I made a mistake to rob some drug dealers. On November 4th, 2008, which is a significant date, the date that President Obama got elected, I found myself watching it from inside of jail. I couldn't imagine the life that I would build after incarceration. I couldn't imagine coming home to a wife, a 14-year-old son. I got my wife in the crowd right now, Santia Nance. A 14-year-old son and a brand new baby girl. And I also came home with a sense to contribute to a community I did not understand before, and a desire to contribute to that community. I didn't understand what home meant for me as a child. I went through a lot of instability, a lot of different homes, a lot of different caretakers. Before I understood what a Commonwealth meant in a constitutional sense, I understood that it was home for me, coming back every summer where my grandmother kept a home. While incarcerated, I realized the weight of my actions. I accepted the consequences of my crimes. I realized the value of safety, security, and being heard in your communities. And I realized that that sense of safety doesn't come from continuous isolation or subjugation of a particular people. Earlier this year, I became one of the 66,000 people who had their voting rights restored. This was monumental for me because I still think about the first day I was incarcerated. I lost my grandmother. Right before she was able to see our first black president. I realized how significant that was for her only after I was incarcerated. Up to that point, I had no idea what they did. I didn't know what the president did. I didn't know what those people did. So when I think about the 66,000 and how we've said this over and over again for the last few weeks, we keep saying 66,000 people very casually. This is 66,000 people who have been in our society and in our communities who have not had a voice for decades. I'm thankful for the governor for restoring my rights and the rights of so many others. But Virginia doesn't need a hero. Virginia needs a system that welcomes people back home after serving their time, after earning their freedom. If past question 3 would remove one person's power to suppress the vote of so many others after they completed their sentence and who have not had their rights to vote back. There is no coherent path to safer communities that excludes a majority of the people from the civic processes. I just learned that 66,000 people is higher than 82% of the populations in counties across Virginia. How much of Virginia's voice has been lost in an antiquated practice that promotes white supremacy? Continuing to choose disenfranchisement over investing in civic responsibility and belonging only breeds more contempt, more strife, and skepticism into those the systems are meant to serve. For example, I think of my own children. Before I got my rights to vote back, I was worried I would have no meaningful voice in their education. I wasn't able to vote for school board members. I wasn't able to vote for city councilmen. I wasn't able to vote for state leaders and local leaders who fund our community. And what kind of message would it send to my kids about their civic duty and how important it is? I mean, how do we consider ourselves Virginians in the first place? We don't build stronger communities by taking away civic responsibility from people. A lot of us ended up in prison because we had no connections to our community. The restoration of rights is not about being compassionate to criminals, over it being about public safety and ushering people to participate in our communities. This November, the Commonwealth has a great opportunity to step up and return the power to belong to the people who work, pay taxes, and raise their children right here in the Commonwealth. Come this November, let's end voter suppression here in Virginia by passing question 3 and protecting the right to vote for all Virginians, regardless of who the governor is. Let's hear what our home actually has to say. Again, my name is Quadair Patterson, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Quadair. Our next speaker is Ms. Charlene Newsom of Newport News. At 18 years old, Charlene was incarcerated for 4.5 years, but her incarceration did not define the rest of her life. Charlene committed herself to education. She earned a bachelor's degree and later an MBA with a concentration in accounting. Today, she is a business owner, an accountant, and a nonprofit leader who gives back to her community. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Charlene Newsom.
Thank you, Sheena. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I stand before you today not just as a business owner, an accountant, a mentor, or a nonprofit leader. I stand before you as someone who knows what it feels like to lose the right to have your voice heard. At the age of just turning 18 years old, I served 4.5 years in prison for getting into a cat fight with a female. That was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but it was also a turning point in my life. I decided that my past would not determine my future. I believe that if our justice system truly believes in rehabilitation, then I had a responsibility to do the work, and I did. But when I walked out of those prison gates, even though I had served my time and chosen a new direction, I still did not have one of the most fundamental rights of citizenship, which was the right to vote. Still, I kept moving forward. I pursued my education, earning my bachelor's degree in psychology at Liberty University, and then later my MBA with a concentration in accounting at Regent University. I'm a business owner, an accountant, a mentor, and a 501c3 nonprofit leader. Through my businesses and community work, I have helped over 26 people start their own tax businesses, created over 9 educational programs for youth, mentored our at-risk youth in our communities, and helped over 56 people get their records expunged, and providing those returning home from incarceration with life skills such as resume writing, credit repair, and connecting them with resources when it comes to jobs and housing. This fall, I will continue my educational journey by pursuing my doctorate in strategic leadership at Regent University, and to continue to be the leader and testimony that God has made me to be. I did everything I could do to become a productive citizen and give back to my community that I call home. But still, I had to apply and wait. Wait for someone to decide whether I deserve my voting rights back. I will never forget the day that envelope came in the mail, and when I opened it and I learned that my rights was restored, I screamed, yes. My children came running down the hallway asking what, and I remember in that moment explaining to them my journey of getting my rights restored. That moment meant more to me than simply being able to cast a ballot. It meant that my voice mattered again. I was excited about being able to fully participate in civic life that even went beyond becoming a notary public. This is how much having my rights meant to me. Today I speak for the people who have served their sentences, returned home, rebuilt their lives, raised their families, started businesses, pursued education, and poured back into their communities. A second chance should really mean a second chance. I didn't get the opportunity to cast my first ballot at the age of 18, but today I understand the power of that ballot more than I ever could have had back then. So when I walk into that voting booth on November 3rd, I won't just be voting for myself. I'll be thinking about every person who has returned home, determined to do better, live better, and contribute to their community. We served our time, we rebuilt our lives, and we contribute to our communities. Our voices matter too. On this November 3rd, I will proudly use the right that I once lost to vote yes on number 3. I hope you will stand with people like me who come home and who want another chance to start over. So please make your own voice heard at the ballot too. Thank you and God bless.
Woo. Y'all know how I feel about this, so I got the chills. Thank you, Charlene, for that very powerful testimony. This campaign is about more than laws written on a page. It's about people who serve their sentences, people who return home. I call them a new class of people because everybody that I work alongside has what we call a violent conviction, but they have poured into these communities more than anybody I know for the past decade that I've been in this work, to include my parents. There are people who have fought to be full participants in their communities and are still locked out of that box. They are asked to be productive and do what's right and pay taxes and raise families and live with their elderly parents, but sit it out when decisions are made to govern them. Our next speaker is Mr. Joseph Prater of Richmond. He was also among the 66,085 Virginians whose rights were restored under Governor Spanberger. and I know he's looking forward to casting his first ever ballot this November. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Joseph Prater.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Prater, and my first thought was, what has Sheba Williams gotten me into now? Knowing her, it would definitely be some form of good trouble for a worthy cause. So I'm honored to stand before you today and share why this vote means so much to me personally. Recently, more than 66,000 Virginians who had previously lost their voting rights had those rights restored. That is a major step forward, and I believe every one of those individuals should recognize what restoration means. Your voice matters. But for me, this is even more personal. I have never voted in my life. So when I tell you that this year's election is going to be a celebration for me, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. For the first time, I will be able to walk into a voting booth and know that my voice can help shape the future of my community, my commonwealth, and my country. And I'm not going to celebrate alone. Many of my fellow brothers and sisters who have been released weren't even aware that their voting rights had been restored, but now that they know, they intend to celebrate with me. We plan to accompany one another to the polls because we want to make sure that after all these years, our voices are finally heard. I have never been a complainer in my life, but I have always been a firm believer that you don't have the right to complain about something if you're not willing to utilize the opportunities you have to make a difference. That's why voting matters. If we vote, we have a say in who is put into office. We may not always get the candidates we want. We may not always agree with every decision they make, but when we vote, we have exercised our voice and participated in the process. But if we don't vote, we willingly give up that voice, and we may very well be helping put into office candidates who don't represent our interests, our families, or our communities. I don't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. My brothers and sisters don't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. We want to participate, we want to have a say, and we want to be heard. That is why question number 3 is so important. I believe that once a person has served their time and returned to their community, they should have a clear and fair path to participate in our democracy. Our right to vote should not depend on whether someone remembers to apply, whether they know where to go, or whether they happen to know that their rights have been restored. Voting is a responsibility, but it's also an opportunity, and one that I intend to take seriously. So this November, I won't just be voting, I'll be celebrating. I'll be celebrating my first opportunity to have my voice heard at the ballot box. And I'll be celebrating alongside my brothers and sisters who are ready to make their voices heard too. So I ask you to join us. Let's show Virginia that returning citizens are not just coming home. We are home ready to participate, ready to contribute, and ready to be heard. On November 3rd, let's make our voices count. Vote yes on question 3.
I always get them into something. We got into graduation last Tuesday as well. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thank you, Joseph, sorry. Our final speaker is Irvin Purval. He is a community organizer. His voting rights have been restored, and today he helps other returning citizens navigate the process of applying to have their rights restored. Please join me in welcoming Irvin Purval.
These things always remind me of how short I am. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak and share my stories. I tried to keep the tears back when I was listening to their stories, but my name is Irvin Purval. I live in the city of Richmond. I'm 62 years old. I've spent over a third of my life in prison, in and out of prison. I haven't had the opportunity or couldn't vote because of the things I've done since 1986. This is very important to me because I was, at the time, when I came home in 2019, this last time, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I decided I had to do something different. I had 5 beautiful daughters, 4 of which had lost their mom to breast cancer, so they needed me to step up and be a daddy, not from behind the walls and on the phone, but out here. It seemed like every time I tried to get a job, my prison record and my criminal record got to the interview before I did. You know, so it was kind of funny that I eventually did find a bunch of folks that used to go around now and wear orange shirts and knock on doors And they actually gave me a job because they wanted me to talk to criminals, ex-criminals like myself. And I knew that was nobody but God. New Virginia Majority gave me an opportunity, a podium. I had an opportunity to go out and speak to guys and gals like myself when I didn't even have my rights to vote. And say, hey, if they took them from you, it's important enough for you to get it back. Because most of us that run in that circle, we don't want to have nothing to do with the police and politics and police running the same line. But I convinced some of them to get their rights back, and I can tell you a heartwarming story. I was in Walmart one day, and this big guy came up to me and picked me up. I'm not much to be picked up, so you can see. It's not hard to pick me up. The guy picked me up and twirled me around. The first thing I said, oh my God, I hope I don't owe this guy no money. I didn't mess with his old lady or nothing. I'm like, what in the world? And he said, Shorty, you don't remember me? And I'm like, not exactly what. He said, man, you don't remember you was on Hall Street and you used to be out there with that orange vest on, that orange shirt. And I was over there trying to complete one of my little deals, man, and you kept bothering me and telling me come on. And I came over there and I filled out that application and man, I got my rights back, man, and I voted for the first time. I'm not out there getting high no more, man. I got a job, I'm doing good. And I'm gonna tell you, just his reaction. And I didn't have mine, but I knew they were coming. And his reaction alone made me know that I did something righteous. And only about a few months later, I was in my living room and my paperwork came, and I didn't have nobody to pick me up then. I just jumped up in the air, almost hit my head on the ceiling fan, and I was so happy. And knowing that I was righteous, I was able to go out here. If I wanted to run for dog catcher, I could. You know, I could run for superintendent of school. Or, I was right. And it does make a difference. It does make a difference. Because if you've been like where I was at and you're trying to do right, to have something like that to say, hey, I'm a citizen, you're taking taxes, you're taking my money when I'm working, you didn't have to give me no restoration for that. So if I can pay taxes, I should be able to vote. So I thank God for Governor Northern, and when I got my rights back, I thank God for NVM, and I say to anybody, if you want folks to have the experience of righteousness like I did experience when I got my rights back, please look at the end of that ballot, the bottom of that ballot, question 3, and vote yes for restoration of rights. Thank you.
Whew. Thank you, Irvin, for sharing your story and for the work you do every day to help others reclaim their voices. Thank you to Joseph, Quadair, and Charlene for trusting us with your stories. We got work to do, y'all. Our experiences, because it's not just them. I lost my voting rights in 2004 for 9 years. Governor Bob McDonnell reinstated my rights along with my mother in 2013, and I voted in every election. I work as a poll worker, and my mother worked as a poll worker every election until she passed on election day in 2021. It is my duty to stand up for others until they get in position, because they will get in position. They don't just have the right to vote. They have the right to be a part of our communities and be seen and heard and looked at as whole people and not 3/5 of a person like we've seen for centuries. Question 3 will replace the inconsistent system with a clear constitutional guarantee. It will establish the right to vote for every eligible Virginian and automatically restore that right to people after they have completed their sentences. Once you have returned home and have rejoined your community, you should have a say in how you're governed in that community. I hope you all will join us in voting yes on question 3 on November 3rd. Look at the back of the ballot, y'all. Turn the paper over, go all the way down the line and vote yes on question 3, because people have left out questions because they're on the back of the ballot or they're too long, but people's lives depend on this vote. Once you have returned home and rejoined your community, you should be a part of this process, and there are people who are still left out of the process. Thank you again to Congresswoman McClellan for being such a champion for years. Thank you to Diversity Richmond for hosting us today. We invite members of the media who have any questions to see Katie Baker, who's right there. And I think several of our speakers and all of our speakers are probably willing to do interviews immediately after we take a group photo. So thank y'all for coming. Vote yes on question 3, November 3rd, starting September 18th. Early voting starts September 18th, so you do not have to wait until November 3rd. Let's get it done.
All right.